This is the Bottom Shot Podcast.
Pulvereri is up high. They come out of turn number 4. Stutter between the turns. The fans come to their feet.
It is Ted Christopher still in command. Keith Rocco right there on his back bumper.
Bringing Stafford Motor Speedway's past and present together.
They are side by side running for the finish line. It's a photo finish.
Deep into turn number 3. He goes in deeper than most. Christopher is in trouble. It is Keith Rocco to slingshot to the bottom, and he'll take down the win.
A Stafford Motor Speedway production where we will hear from the personalities from the past and present that found success on the legendary half-mile oval.
The scoreboard shows goose eggs as they wait. It's Pulvereri. He wins it by inches over Richie Evans in the Spring Sizzler.
Unbelievable chain of events.
Now, here are your hosts, Paula Root and Kyle Rickey.
It is March 2020, and that means the 2020 season here at the Stafford Motor Speedway is officially next month.
Let's go!
Welcome to episode number 6 of the Bottom Shot Podcast. Kyle Rickey and track COO Paula Root with us here. And Paul, it's a long winter, thankfully a mild winter for us, but we can officially say that the Napa Spring Sizzler 2020 edition is next month.
We are under 2 months away from the Sizzler, the 49th annual Spring Sizzler. It's going to be a great couple of days of action. And, hey, we're getting pumped up here. I'm excited. I know I'm jacked up today just on everything. We got cars coming in from all over the place. We got teams that are pumped up. We got fans that are pumped up. And it's going to be a hell of a season.
It's going to be a great season, no doubt, as the countdown continues here. We're going to talk more about the race weekend and how you can participate in the race weekend as far as tickets and stuff later in the show. But I want to talk about the headline division for 2020 here at the Stafford Motor Speedway. Once again, the SK Modifieds, and man, the entries are rolling in.
We're at 62 cars on the entry list. So that's teams. You know, it's not always every team isn't going to show up every Friday, but that's a lot of teams that have
expressed some interest.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Right. If you go down the roster and you count, I was counting with David this morning, looking at 35 fully funded teams that expect to compete a lot this summer. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see 40 cars at the Sizzler, which is crazy.
Incredible.
I know I'm probably going to jinx it now. There's only going to be 20, but there's going to be it's a good field. You look at the roster, and I don't know who the favorite truly is. It's got to be the 50 team.
Absolutely.
But you look down the roster, and there's some quality teams, quality cars, and there's a bunch of guys that are just poised to break out.
You mentioned the 50 team. Ronnie Williams, of course, will be looking for 3 track championships in a row in the SK Modifieds. Todd Owen expected to come back after a heartbreaking loss of the title a year ago, coming down to a tiebreaker on race wins in a race that he won.
He won the race. Yep. He had 4 wins. The 50 team had 5. Yep. So he lost the championship. He was devastated. I know that. 1
position on the racetrack is pretty much what that equates to.
And I'd expect that team to come back, pick up right how they left off with the fall final. You know, quick out of the box, a fast car. I think he's probably going to be a top-tier driver again this year.
Absolutely.
Him, Ronnie, Keith. But who else do you think could, surprise us?
I like the rookie class coming up.
Rookie class,
Ryan Narducci, Teddy Hodgson, both have obviously found success in the SK Light Modifieds. Teddy picking up the championship a year ago. Brian has been in contention for the title the last couple of years. They're both moving up. And
Mike Flynn as well.
Mikey Flynn moving up. So there's 3.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to take to the SK. It's a very different style of driving. But if you look back on all these SK Light graduates, they've all had success in the SK division. It's not always immediate, just because it's a different caliber of driver. It's like the difference is probably just the amount of knowledge that those SK teams have acquired over the seasons. It's not like they're better drivers per se, which they could be, but it all depends on how you adjust the car for that night. How do you adjust your driving and your car to a cold night, a hot night, a cloudy night? And I think the knowledge like a Keith has goes a ways. But don't be surprised if you catch a rookie in victory lane this year.
No, absolutely not. And I think we saw some of that adjustments with Marcello Rufano last year, going from the SK Lights to his rookie year in the SK Modifieds.
And he dominated the SK Lights. He won a lot. He was the 2018 champion, I believe.
2 years ago.
I want to say he snuck out maybe 2 podiums this year, maybe a top 5 in a podium, but that to me is a driver who could break out and score not only a win, but potentially 2, because he's got speed, but just couldn't complete the races. Look at an Andrew Moeller, who won a race, shocked the world in May. He's with a new team. He goes from a Spafco car to a Troyer, and he's gonna be in a Keith Rocco prepared car, which obviously is a fast car. So, and don't even count out
Michael Jervis,
who poor Michael Jervis lost twice this year by under a tenth of a second. At the line, a photo finish.
Photo finishes,
So he's a guy who could have had easily 2 wins this year, who had 0. So it's wide open. It's wide open. It's going to be an awesome season.
Throw in the likes of Matt Galco, Eric Byrne, Steven Kopsick, and Michael Christopher Jr. I mean, that poor kid last year.
We didn't talk about him yet.
I mean, 3 in a row to end 2018. Won the last 2 Friday nights, won the Napa Fall Final, and went winless in 2019.
Yeah, they had a tough year. They just broke a lot. I know they were upset about their season, but it was probably a good time to take a look in the mirror and say, well, how can we improve this team? I wouldn't be surprised at all if they came out flying in 2020, just because they have that, that bad season to kind of adjust and say, okay, let's put that behind us and go back, get a win.
And I think if they start off strong with a win, they'll be a force to reckon with all year.
Yeah, because then you also have to talk about a Kopsick. He won 2 races last year, and he was fast every single Friday. And the classic Steven Kopsick, a little crazy out there, but he makes it. He gets it done, and he is a guy who knows how to set up a car, and he's learned a lot about that car in the last 2 seasons. So it's going to be a great 2020 in the SK division, as it's always been. I like to say it's the best asphalt division in the world. Not only the country, it's in the world, because how do you beat the SK Modifieds at Stafford?
You don't. And I think the racing last year showed why this place is packed in the pits and in the grandstands every Friday night. Glenn Reen's coming back.
Oh, didn't talk about
and he has a new teammate.
Chase Dowling is also back. That's a driver who is going to be a factor, driving a Dan Avery prepared car, brand new Troyer. Michael Sullivan is going to be the man behind the setting the car up. So that's going to be a good combo too. I totally forgot about Chase.
And this is a good segue. We talk about Chase Dowling. We talk about Glenn Reen, another driver that has driven for that team, and Dan Avery. Woody Pitkat, our guest here, coming up in just a few minutes.
The Sultan of Stafford. He has driven anything that is every car it's ever pretty much been at Stafford. He started in the dare stocks and ended he hit the top of the pedestal by winning the Sizzler back in 2015, which he was very excited on that day. I would imagine it was probably his favorite win of his entire career. He had the whole town he was in victory lane. I think he thanked the whole town of Stafford by name, one by one, which is awesome. So we're excited to have him, and we'll have some great tales about his time at Stafford. It's going to be good.
Started with what was the Dare Stocks, now the Street Stocks, and obviously NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour fame and all the divisions in between. Woody Pitkat will join us here in studio next here on the Bottom Shot Podcast.
Back here on the Bottom Shot Podcast, joined by a driver now that knows this racetrack well, with 77 wins, second on the all-time win list here at the Stafford Motor Speedway, in Woody Pitkat. Woody, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
The Sultan of Stafford is in the building.
This is your home racetrack. We introduce you on Friday nights from Stafford Springs, Connecticut for years. When was the first time you learned of this racetrack and your first memory of coming to a race here?
Honestly, I don't really remember that. I mean, when I started going to the races, it was when I was born. Both my uncles were racing at up dirt races up at Lebanon Valley. So that's where I was brought up. You know, I think a lot of people had thought, oh, maybe he'll be, you know, one day if he wants to race, he'll be a dirt driver. And, you know, just living 6 miles from the track, you know, going there. You know, I remember going upstairs, roller skating and coming to the track.
He's dating himself already. We just started this podcast.
Yeah, I know. I think when I really remembered was when my mom used to take me to a lot of the Modified Tour races. I was a big Mike McLaughlin fan.
Cool.
And we used to chase him, you know, just around. You go to Thompson in Stafford. I remember we used to sneak in Coors Extra Gold. He was sponsored by Coors Extra Gold, so I'd always tell my mom, "Oh, can we, you know, bring him one after the race?" So we would do that, and
that's cool.
You know, it was we had a really good relationship. He used to send me clocks and pictures and all kinds of autograph stuff and get me T-shirts and stuff. So that was probably, you know, right around 10, 11, 12 years old when I can recall, you know, doing that, and then just, you know, fell in love with it. Watched it, you know, racing with my uncle. You know, we had a lot of land where I lived. We had 100 between my mother and grandmother. We had 120 acres of land. So when I had been growing up, got into like ATVs, four-wheelers and stuff. So that's what I was doing. You know, when like, you know, Santos and Kobe and those guys were coming up through the ranks of the quarter midgets and stuff, I was out in the middle of the woods riding a four-wheeler. So I never really got the opportunity. And then kind of a weird story. I was hanging out at Olympic Field one day.
Just up the road here.
Yeah, the football field. I think I was 14 or 15 years old, and Ryan Pisacca was there, and
6-time late model champion.
Correct. And I had seen him, you know, when we used to go to Syracuse, the big races in October at Syracuse, when my uncle raced up there. You know, him and his brother and his father would go, because I think his father was a sponsor of my uncle, so they had, you know, they always supported my uncle, so I'd see them up there and stuff, but. Just that one day, I saw him over at the field and started talking to him. And, you know, we obviously were both into racing. He's a few years older than me, but we started talking, and I don't know, it kind of like clicked, and we just started hanging out like every day. I'd have to say for 5 or 6 years, like we hung out every day from that day on. And, you know, he was running dare stocks, and I'd come down and help him, you know, cheer him on and watch him. And we went to a bunch of Hartford Whalers games. You know, we did all kinds of stuff. And then, you know, he moved up. I got in the dare division, started racing against him for, I think, half a season. And then he moved up to late models. And then I ran another year with the dare. And then we moved up. And then, I don't know, we kind of just went our separate ways. We weren't I can't remember going to high school. And he was still
have a memory of high school?
I remember he was in Stafford, and I was going to Wyndham Tech in Willimantic, so I wasn't going to be able to see him every day anymore. Right. So I remember visually crying before I was going to start going to school.
Too many Ryan Pisacca jokes. Yeah. I can't even do it
because I don't right. So and I used to always make fun of him in Victory Lane crying. So I don't know if he knows this story or not, but yeah, I remember they were in college in Florida, Boca Raton, Florida. I went and visited him down there. Like we were legit like.
So he kind of is the one who got you interested in the actual driving, or were you always kind of like, I want to be a driver?
I mean, I would have to say probably what started me was probably Jimmy Peterson. You know, I was hanging out with him, Dave Hirsch.
So you were
a bunch of crew members.
All these drivers because of your uncles?
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with him. You know, a lot of people followed him. I remember going to races at Thompson with Jimmy Peterson's crew members, 13 years old. Rick Hartenstein, who works down here.
Yeah. And I believe, did he build your first car? Or was involved in that?
Yeah, they were involved with helping me. I bought my dare stock was from Jeff Daggett. We bought it from Jeff and Harvey Daggett, and I actually left it at Jimmy's house because I didn't have anywhere to store
Jim
it.
Peterson's house?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and same thing, you know, I was a big fan of Jimmy before, you know, getting involved with Ryan. You know, this is all memories coming up now. This is a story I almost forgot to put in there. So I didn't want to miss that because, you know, obviously Jimmy and Dave and Rick and all those guys, his whole team were, a big, huge reason why it all begun. Being able to, you know, leave the car there, learn, you know, they would show me the ropes on what I needed to do, how to nut and bolt it, what to look for. And that was the big thing, was starting with them. And like I said, I remember going to Thompson, and you have to know your social security number. And at that time, I was 14 years old going to pits. I didn't know. So they're writing it on my hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm like, okay, go up there, write that down. I got the $100 Oakley sunglasses on, so they're not even thinking that and I don't know, probably at that time, they probably more looking at the $40 to get into the pits
exactly.
than worrying about the age. So
it came up a couple times when we were doing some investigating about your background. Is it true that you were under the age of 16 when you started driving? Or is that just a rumor?
Well, I'd have to say my first go at it would be, Riverside Park. Yep. Was a figure 8 car.
Figure 8 car.
Yep,
Okay.
My dad had the left and right car that he ran down here back in the day, and I don't even remember how old I was, 14, 15.
So
but
go out there. We're going to do the figure 8 division at the park.
They had the cars. They had the cars up on the top, outside of at Riverside, and then you drive down. So you drive through the gate. So they don't know, they don't see, they just see ahead going down the hill. So, and it was Woody Pitkat. Oh, so they don't. There's 2 Woody Pitkats. My dad's Woody. I'm Woody. So they didn't know at the time. I'm sure, Ben probably knew, but I don't know. So we went out there, and that was one thing I didn't like about it was you had to get through the figure 8. You had to finish that to get into the circle track thing. It was like a heat race. It was like you had to finish the whole figure 8.
And then you
I remember you would transfer
oval?
to oval. Yeah. So
that.
another member of Jimmy Peterson's crew was with me, Scott, and he elected to just weasel up to the side of the wall. Oh, I got a flat tire. I can't finish, but I'm going to get into the race. And it had rained right before we went down. We had this big thunderstorm, and I want to say there was probably about 10 inches of rain in the middle of the X. And I was, oh yeah, it was like we were bombing through it.
This is like one of your first times out
This
there?
was my first ever time.
Yeah,
this was my first ever time in any style of car. It was
screw it.
It had a full roll cage in it. It was a big Monte Carlo, just like my Dare car. It had a fuel cell in it. It was a legit race car for a figure 8. That was back in the Maniac Mike days when he used to win all those races, and I'm sure Billy Davis was there. I didn't know him at the time, but I'm sure he was doing that. But I just stalled the thing in the middle of the X. Thought I was going to get cleaned out because of the rain. Got it going again. Finished the whole X.
Did you qualify?
I got into the race. I remember running the race, and each lap I got better. Driving it in a little harder, getting more comfortable with it and more comfortable. And I remember one time drove it down into 3 and 4, and I got it pretty tight. So I had a lot of wheel into it. So when I straightened it out off the corner, I had the thing all fishtailed and this and that. I'm like, whoa, whew. I'm like, I almost lost it. All right, that's a good save. And sure enough, the next lap, I did the same thing. I ended up spinning out. I got T-bone, passenger side, and they just leave you there. So I'm
there's no cautions.
Yeah, no. So I'm just sitting there. I see my mom run down to the gate. She's looking to see if I'm okay, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just sitting here. People are brushing by me, hitting me. And if you can't get the car off the track, you can't drive it off. That's it. It's junk. You have to leave it. So when all this was,
do you just sit there?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is the car was it was hurt. It bent. It hit the right rear.
Yeah.
The axle was busted out of it and stuff. So I would have had to leave the car there and they were going to scrap it. So when all this was going on, I think my father found Ben. This is off the record stuff, but it's okay now because it's old stories. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he worked out a way to talk to Ben about we need to get this car back because it's got a racing seat in it, it's got a roll cage. This is
our car.
Yeah, this is a good car, and we're gonna try to fix it and come back. So I remember, the guy coming in with the big, bulldozer, and he's like, "Get out of the car, we're getting it." I'm like, "Huh? Okay." So I'm getting out, and the guy in the bulldozer is coming back to the gate, and there's a guy standing there at the fence saying, "Nope, you can't do it. You can't take it." Because he's got to raise it up over the fence to get it out.
So they
off the track.
Actually just
so this guy
scrapped all these cars.
Oh yeah. So this guy's got it. My dad's got the trailer out on the other side of the gate, down by the river, and this guy's standing there. No, you can't do this. And the guy's like, he didn't stop. So the guy had to get out of the way. He's like, Ben Dodge is going to get you fired. And he's like, F Ben Dodge. And he put it on the trailer, and we strapped it down, and away we went. And we came back, for one of the other ones. But
and that was your first time behind the wheel of a race car?
Yeah, that was the first ever time. It was pretty good story. Huh? Oh, yeah.
Hooked immediately?
Yeah, I remember, Ryan, I think Ryan was off to college because I remember having Good Luck Ryan on the corner. Yeah, Good Luck Ryan on the side of the car. But yeah, those are old memories. I think I still have the door of that car somewhere.
And so did that car become your dare stock at Stafford, or was there a separate car?
No, that was a separate car.
And so what was that? So was it always in the plan to come to Stafford, or did that just come together after you're like, well, I'm kind of into this. I survived this
Right. I think a lot of it, like I said, just watching Ryan and going to the races with him and just being in town.
Yeah.
I mean, for some reason, I don't really have a lot of memories of coming here, growing up. I mean, I do have a little bit. Remember coming, with the Jimmy Peterson, a kid that I met at Cliff Gomo, his father, works up at LaFramboise Well Drilling up by Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Met him. We had our bunch of little groupies.
You had groupies?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what am I talking about? You have the biggest fan base on the earth is the Woody Pitkat fan.
We used to walk.
If he's not here, the beer sales are down.
We used to. Hopefully the beer sales are good because it's pretty sporty over there now.
It's cool, right?
Even I went up there last
fun.
time. Yeah. But yeah, we used to walk, the train tracks back then over there where, I don't know what's there now, it's a Chinese restaurant or something. There used to be a Dugan's ice cream. We used to go there. And they used to have what you would call like a blizzard now, ice cream would, whatever you wanted, Reese's Pieces or whatever. They used to call them flurries. So I used to call them Mark Flurries for my uncle. So we used to always go over there. And another funny story is when we were with our little groupies, this one kid, back then we were, I don't know, same thing, teenagers, 12, 13, 14. One of these kids, he just come up with this random joke. He's like, how come girls can't sleep on their sides? And we're like, I don't know why. He's like, because they don't have a kickstand. So from that, at that age,
might have to edit that one out, Bonta.
At that age, it was a pretty funny thing, So now
it's still pretty funny.
If you look at it now, Cliff Gomo is Kickstand Racing.
Oh, is that name is?
Yeah, that's where Kickstand Fab. That's where it all came from. Was this one kid come up with this joke, and it just caught us. We were rolling on the ground laughing. But I'd have to say a lot of it was, just coming, watching Jimmy Peterson,
being
watching
local.
late models.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then you start your driving career at Stafford and almost have immediate success. How did you take to this track? It's a tough track. It's big. The corners are different, and you obviously were adapted almost immediate to the half mile. So how did that come about, and did it take a while? Was it just immediate?
Yeah, I took one word of advice that I took from my father, and I took it pretty much to heart when he had said it, and it was you can go out there and try to set the world on fire and put the thing in the wall, and we might have to take a few weeks off or half a season off to get it fixed, or you can go out there and do the best you can and work your way up and just start easy and get better and better each time. So I think it was maybe a little timid the first time going out there because of what he said and not wanting to let people down because, I knew obviously everybody in the town. But that was one piece of advice that he had given me that I stuck still to this day was to just go out there. Take your time. And of course, third race, first place is how it ended up. But we had bought a good car that had ran here before. And I don't know, I guess it was just, maybe it was in my blood between, my uncle's racing and stuff like that. But yeah, I felt like even, and then I had my hard times when we moved into late models. We struggled, probably the first couple years. We had a local supporter, Howard Buckland, over here at American Sleeve Baron. He still helps me from time to time. He's not only a great, sponsor, but to me, he's a great lifelong friend. He had helped me. I remember one night I didn't qualify, and I want to say it might have been my birthday. And they had
in the late models.
Yeah, they had the booth up there. They had the booth with the banner underneath. And, I didn't qualify through the heat race or something. And I think actually something ended up happening to my car. It might have broke the motor or something. And he didn't hesitate. We rented a car, and I jumped in the car for the consi. And I think it was Homer Webb's car or something. It was like 8 laps, and I didn't get in the show, but, I mean, it showed right there. Yeah, it showed right there. Yeah, exactly. And that was, huge motivation to see, that he was that supportive of me. But it's funny because I remember watching some videotapes because I got every videotape from every race when I raced in the past because, you use that as homework to go back and see what you've done, what you could have done better. And I'm like, man, those 2 or 3 first years in late models, it's like, yeah, now I know why they did that to me or why they were so mad at me for what I did. But yeah, you just, just tried to learn. I know there was one year in the late models. It was a really, really competitive year, and it seemed like it was me, Ryan Pisacco, Jay Stewart, Mike Quintiliano.
Was Zintarski in that?
And I want to say Chuck Zintarski. Yeah, I said Jay Stewart.
Jay Stewart.
Yep. There was like 5 or 6 of us that no matter what, every week, we would start 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, but at the end, we were in the top 5. One week I'd be 3rd, the next week I'd be 2nd, the next week I'd be 6th. It would be that clutter of people. So I remember, this was probably, this was a couple years now that I had success. I moved over to Bob Phil Chassis, Billy the Kid Engines, Dennis Botticello when he was racing back at the time got me in with Billy the Kid. So I had a lot of good, backing and a lot of help and support to get better. And I remember being in tech and saying to Bob Phil, like, what do I got to do? Like, Ryan is like, we're all supposed to be on the same level. We have the same equipment, same car, but I just keep getting beat every time. And he just said something like, if you would like pay more attention and give me more feedback, better feedback on what the car's doing instead of worrying about who's beating you and this and that, maybe you would be in Ryan's shoes. So I remember leaving pissed off that day. That night I was mad, took it the wrong way, and went home and thought about it for a day or two. And then after that, I focused more on, all right, I need to pay more attention on what the car's doing, when I'm out in practice, what it's doing, on entry, in the center, on exit, everything. Just get a better feel for the car and give them better feedback. And I think that was, after I had that little heart-to-heart with them, I think that was one of a big keys to getting better and getting my skills honed better and
those are
having
tough
more
cars.
Success.
Those cars are tough to drive. If you can drive a Stafford car, a model at Stafford, it's like a low tire, big power. Mm-hmm. It's tough to drive that car. So it's not like you're just gonna get in and set the world on fire. So it takes a while, but you pretty much caught on within a couple of years. Yeah, and you're dominating all of a sudden.
Yep, and I actually had saw on Facebook, I had saw a question was what was one of the cars that I liked, running here the most, and I'd have to say probably the late model, and that was one of the reasons why I got back into it with Bill Snow when I had the opportunity. It's just I feel like the modifieds are almost like a big go-kart. I feel like they're a little bit easier to drive. I think everybody has such good equipment, so really the only way you're going to beat somebody is talent and how you have your car set up that night. Whereas the late model was more of like you said, it's a heavy car, small tire, big power. You can kind of more manhandle the thing around. And I think a lot of it was like watching drivers, seeing what they're doing, moving around. That's what kind of one thing I had noticed was the veteran drivers, some of the veteran drivers in the late models seem to do the same thing over and over and over again. And you got to kind of move around and search. And that was one of the big things that I like to do. And to me, I don't know, I just thought that was a little bit more of a challenge to run the late model. So that's why when I came back, I always liked doing that.
Let's get you back in one.
It might happen.
And the late model era for you in your career was a time where you were trying to also kind of build your brand here at the racetrack. Neon Woody with the hair. I mean, how did that start? And I guess it continued for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, all the neon come right from my uncle. You know, when I in the early '90s, you know, when they had the big race, the big car show at Racerama, it used to be real big. You know, they'd give away trophies and clocks and stuff. I just remember going there. We'd go there every year with my uncle. In 1987, he had won the championship, and you know, he had a black and yellow car, nothing too crazy, but early '90s, '92, '91, '93, right around there. He had showed up with his car with all the neon on it. Wild thing. He was the pretty much first fluorescent car. And I was like, wow, this thing is, you know, really cool. It's got the wild thing on it. It's got the neon. And he's racing at Lebanon Valley. And in Victory Lane, they're playing the Wild Thing song from Major League, you know. So it was like, all right, when I start, you know, when I move up and I start, that's what I want it to be. I want it to be, you know, the big flashy fluorescence all over everything and the day glow, and that's kind of how it started. You know, when I started, I think it was, I had 52, right? And then in the late models, I moved up to 25. But until I could get the number, or I don't even know. I never had 52 in the late model, right? Because Mike Mordino had the number, so I was always 25. Yep, and then switched it back to 52.
And so did that inspire the hairdos?
Yeah, that was just
the neon hair. I think there was some blue. Was there?
Oh
blue
yeah,
in
there was all kinds. There was checkered flag one time with masking tape or Scotch tape I had to put in there to do that. That was probably the hardest. There was neon pink. There was neon yellow, and that was all probably a protege of Cliff Gomo there. My buddy, he was big into all that stuff. We went to some Marilyn Manson concerts with our blue hair and neon yellow hair, and didn't know if we were going to come out of there alive, but. But yeah, it all kind of, you know, started with that. And I remember coming across the track after a race and seeing kids, you know, at the pit gate there, you know, just waving, you know, like you said, to, you know, the fans and this and that. And then we started doing the hair, and there's a couple kids there with the hair, and their mothers are sitting there like this right next to them. I said, oh boy, what do we start here? Yeah. So, that's.
So my next question is so you have all this great success in a late model. When do you decide to go to a modified, to the SK ranks? Is this, you know, always an intention of yours to get to a modified, or, you know, did an opportunity come up and, you know, it's time to go? Yeah,
I mean, I was having some really good success with the late model. I had some good backing. You know, I had, right before I made the step to run an SK, I had Davis & Company, as you all know. You know, David Rowe and his sons, Timmy and Tommy Rowe. They were, you know, really big here at that time. You know, they had Jeff Malave, and they were doing stuff here at the track. So I had some really good backing and really good support, and really, you know, was having success with the late model, and really wasn't looking too far ahead. I was, you know, I had this talk with Bob Phil from time to time about, if I didn't get this one call, would I have gone more of a late model path or ACT late model, or maybe, you know, Bush North? I don't know. At the time, which is now Menards or K&N East. You know, I did a couple races with that with Mike Olson. I did one here and went to Irwindale that one time.
Fifth or sixth?
Fifth. Yeah, I think it was sixth.
Finish,
yep. So it was. I'm trying to think. Get the years mixed up. I want to say it was 05, 06, because I had just finished. I was running here, late model here, and a late model at Thompson. We just finished second in points at Thompson. We had a good year there. And like I said, we had really good backing, you know, with Davis & Company and just everybody that was supporting me at the time. And I want to say it was like Thanksgiving Day. I got a phone call from Doug DePisa.
Okay.
And
I forgot you drove that car.
Yep. Yeah. And he had called and asked if, you know, what my plans were and what I was thinking, and if I ever wanted to move up, you know, that they would want to give me a shot. So I remember having a call, you know, and talk to Mr. Rowe about it, because I knew, you know, I probably would be losing him as, you know, a sponsor or whatever, because he had already had a car, you know, in the SKs. So it was going to be a good opportunity for me to try something different. So after I had a long talk with him and a couple of my other people, we decided to do that. And, still to this day, I'd have to say I would have to give, Doug and Chris DePisa probably the credit for me making the switch from the late model to the SK. So we ran a year with them. I think the first race, that was back when they had double races at the Sizzler. We'd race a Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, so I want to say
I think this was 04, I want to say.
04?
Because there's a 04 you didn't have a win all season besides the Consi and the SKs.
Yep.
Does that sound about right?
It could have been, but I want to say I finished like third or fourth in the points.
Yeah, I think you had.
I tied Frank Rocco in the points.
Crack into the victory lane.
Right. I want to say it was something like that. But I know that Sunday race, the first race of the year, I finished third. I was a battle, like a good battle between me and Eric Burnt. First race out, you're racing the Bulldog. It was a pretty cool day. So, and we had a pretty good year, if I can recall. Like I said, we finished third in points, but we never, were able to crack a win that first year.
Did you like the change, like going from that the late model to the modified? Like, did you enjoy that change, or was it like, I miss my late model, I want to go back to winning?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed like the rush, the speed, the rush being lower to the ground. Yeah. I know there was, some ups and downs with it, some, bad moments that you had to take with, a lot of learning, to square up the bumper if you're getting into a jingle instead of trying to dodge the wreck and ripping the right front off. Or there was I can remember a lot of times where something would happen in front of you and you get that like kind of panic, like lock the brake up panic, and if you would have got off the brakes and steered out of it, you'd be all right. But you lock the brakes up like you're on the highway and
knock off the right
go
front.
right into the wall or something like that. So there was, many years of that I can recall. And it wasn't just in, that first year of driving for DePisa's. It was, once I moved into the 52, I had a couple of those moments as well. And it's just all stuff that you kind of have to learn. And that's what I did. I ran that one season for the DePisa's, and then we came back the following year. We ran just the spring Sizzler, and we kind of had like a little falling out after the Sizzler, and it was kind of weird. He sent me like a certified letter on a Tuesday that I was out of the ride, and they were going to
certified mail. Huh?
Oh yeah, it was a certified letter in the mail. So it was like, and if I can recall, I think he was pretty upset. He wanted me to spin out Kenny Horton for like 5th place at the end of the race, and I didn't do it.
Kenny listens to this podcast too,
well, good. I want to come down and see him. All those videos I had told him. I said, man, you're living a life down there. I got to come down and visit. But
so
he probably won't
certified mail, and you got fired because you wouldn't spin out Kenny.
I'm pretty
Horton.
sure.
Like
I told him after the race. I think something did ended up happening. If I recall now, I don't know if it was anything to do with Kenny, but I want to say I got in a jingle early in the race and had to come back up through, and it would have been for like 5th or 6th place, and he was roadblocking me. I don't really remember, but it was like, I just came from 28th to 5th, 6th. This is a good day, we made up ground, and I'm pretty sure Doug wanted me to finish him off, and I'm like, no, I'm buddies with the guy. I'm not gonna. Now I don't know if that was one of the reasons. Yeah. There's probably more than just that one reason. But yeah, certified letter in the mail. Come down to the track on Friday, no ride. I wasn't going to come. Michael Bennett, was racing at the time. I came down. He was running his limited late model. He was having transmission issues. I got right under there, helped him change that, watched his race, and I went home. And I was working at the parts store, Acme Auto Parts Store out in Storrs, Connecticut. The next morning, I remember getting a phone call from David Rowe. And he said, he wanted to buy me a ride, and I said, well, you already have a ride. And he said, well, you're too good of a driver to be sitting up in the stands. I saw you up in the stands watching the race, and I saw you leave, and you have way too good a talent to not be out on that track. So I said, all right. So he said, he gave me a number on what he could afford and said to start looking for a car. And at the time, my girlfriend was her father and they were, helping carry Malone. He was racing. But at that point, I think he was only racing Thompson. He was doing, both for a few years, and then he had ventured off to just run a Thompson. So they had the Stafford car. So we got a hold of him and, got the car from Jimmy Fuller and Kerry, and we ran that season kind of on our own. We did our own thing with the car. I had a a guy helped us that was helping me on my late model. We called him M2 back in the day. It was Jeff. Was kind of my crew chief, and he did a phenomenal job. We housed the car at my Grams. It was all new to us, and he was up there. He'd go through the car 3, 4, 5 times, just to make sure it was right. And I want to say we won 2 races that year.
You think you won twice?
Yep.
Towards the middle of the season.
I can't really remember where we were in the points. We were somewhere in the top 10. But, we had a good year for putting it together. We were teammates with Jeff Malave. And it was, pretty good. And then right at the end of the year, we were thinking about going to the North-South Shootout because that was the first year they had the SK Modifieds. They added the SK Modifieds to their series down there. And we got a hold of Jimmy Fuller. We wanted to go down there, try to go there with the best. And had an opportunity to go there with him. And he went through the whole car, set the whole car up at Carey's. We went down there, and we were awesome. We started on the outside pole, had a awesome rivalry of me and Jimmy Blewett. That was probably a start of another friendship with a racing competitor, racing with Jimmy, and came out of there with the win, and that was another one of those inaugural wins that I have. I think I have a lot of those here dating back. So that was really cool. And then
a big win for you.
Yeah, that was probably one of those that kind of put me on the map, to be able to go somewhere else. And that was a big thing, and I still, to this day, I feel like that's a big thing. That one of the reasons why I like to venture out and do like the Tri-Track series and the MRS, and when it was the Valente Modified Racing Series. I know they change their name every once in a while, but I don't want to be that one guy that can only win, at Stafford, or he can only win at Thompson, So I always wanted to.
Like they say, if you can get it done at Stafford, you can probably get it done anywhere.
Yeah, and so that's why I always like traveling, Now I know getting up in my age and, having a family and kids now, the traveling is a big burden, and that's something that we bicker about and talk about from time to time, all the time. So that's one of the things that we had talked about is, eventually it's going to be time where you're going to have to slow down, and maybe it'll all line up to come back here. But as of right now, I'm still have these awesome rides and, amazing people backing me and great opportunities. And like I said, I love to go to these other tracks where I can, showcase my talent there and hopefully can win at other tracks. I remember going to Loudon, never thinking I could. For one, never thought I'd even be there. I can remember going there with Jimmy Peterson and those guys, just going to watch and, cheering, yelling for Chuck Hosfeld and losing my voice and just watching all that. It was just amazing how many passes they would do. And then, to go out there, it was really my second ever modified tour race was at Loudon. I had started.
This is in the Don King car, right?
This was for the Hillbillies.
Oh, the Hillbillies. Sorry, the 79 Coors Light car.
Right. I had gotten a job.
We're jumping it
with the
ahead
20.
Here. This is good. We're jumping ahead.
We're getting
going
a little
right.
bit ahead of our time, but I'm trying to think of how that started. I just, going to the tracks, meeting people. Ronnie Silk, still to this day, he's a real good friend of mine. He calls me all the time, and it's hard. It's hard to stay close to people. When you grow up and you start dating girls and doing your own thing, people go apart. Ryan, he's happy and he's married, and I don't talk to him as much as I have in the past, but will have to say Ronnie is one of those close friends that still keeps in contact and still calls from time to time. He'll get off the phone and say he'll call me right back, and it's a week when he calls me back. But oh no, I'm calling you back today. Don't worry. Yeah, okay.
I swear he's the only driver that's on no social media at all.
I know. And I wish I had that. But he knows all this stuff.
No, I know,
he finds all this stuff out.
I go to tag him in a post or something, and nope, Ron Silk still doesn't have anything on any social media.
Right. But so hanging out with him, we used to go up and down the highway, go to North Carolina, stay at the Joyous Seating up top, go to races down there, grab a seat, come back. We were doing that. There was times when we would go down there. I don't even remember when I woke up in the morning, what day or what time it was, because you're just, you're down doing different stuff. We met Joey Logano down there. He was racing Bandoleros and Corey LaJoy and Savali, just all those guys, So I had started, helping James a little bit. He was running the modified, and he was just a lunatic, and I loved some of the moves that he would make. Oh, my God. It was like was just make or break moves. It was so cool to watch. So I just remember, helping him a little bit, and I'm trying to think of how it started. I was here. Oh, we went to Wall.
This is the Hill car. He was driving for Don King. I had no modified tour ride at the time. I was, just racing here, and I was helping James with the 28, and we went to Wall, and I forgot, he was in the top 3 in the points at the time. So he went and wrecked, dragged the thing in, right front's ripped off and this and that, and we're looking at the car, and Don's disgusted, So I asked Don, you got any spare parts for the car? And this would go back to, SK with Jimmy Fuller helping us, because after the North-South shootout, we got Jimmy Fuller involved, and he was my crew chief, and that's when we had all the success with the SKs, and met Bobby Hitchcock when I was running late models. We turned him into being a $500 sponsor to, you're coming in and pushing a pit box, to now you own a race car. Now you own 5 race cars.
Now you own an SK Modified. The first year out, you are the champion of Thompson Motor Speedway, and before the national championship, you're a Dodge Weekly
Regional.
Racing. Yeah. So we all got spoiled pretty quick. And, so this was, whenever anything happened with Jimmy, it was never say die attitude. It was no matter what,
fix it.
It's getting fixed. Screaming, I need a 7/8 wrench, like this, that. Just watching how he worked and that no quit. When James came in that day at Wall with the right front cleaned off, I just took over and started telling him, like, there was a couple crew guys there that you could tell didn't know a whole lot, so it was like, just tell them what tools you need. James' brother was there. Joey was running around getting parts. Don was getting parts. We got it all back together, maybe lost 2 or 3 laps, got him back out there. And, of course, he only made it a lap, and he ripped the left side off of it.
That's James
So
right
drag the thing back in again, and the same thing. Get this more parts, because that's what Don said. Don, when he first came in, he goes, I got the spare parts. We'll just put it back on and load it. I said, we ain't loading this thing. You're second in points.
Yeah.
We're getting this thing back out there. So we thrashed, and the second time he came in, I ain't got a Nerf bar. And, I was yelling, go find a Nerf bar. So Joey Savali comes back, I got a Nerf bar. And, James's dad's in there. And once we got him back out there, and he went and finished the race, and I still think he ended up 17th or 18th, but we ended up saving him like 32 or 36 points at the end of the night. And his dad was very generous, very thankful. And I was exhausted. I just remember sitting in the trailer like, what did I just do? Yeah. So we got the next race is Stafford. After that, he gets the cars ready, and I wasn't, working for Don at the time. It was just, showing up the track and helping. And, it was cool. I came back, told Jimmy what I did, and he thought that was cool. And so we come to Stafford, and I'm sitting on the backstretch Wall. The race is going on. And Don King is telling me at the time that his car chief's moving to North Carolina, and he wanted to know if I wanted to come work for him. And I was working over at the bus company right across the street here where Abishon's is. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about, okay, well, I only have a 5-minute ride to work, and you're in Middletown. I'm going to have an hour and 10-minute ride every day, So I said, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to make this work. And he's like, well, if you come in at 8, punch in for 7, I'll give you an hour, an hour a day for fuel and this and that. And so, it all sounded good. We're sitting there on the Wall talking about, I'm going to go work for him as this is happening and not even thinking about it. But Chuck Hosfeld's in the 79, and he pounds the fence off of 2, and his race is done. So 2 days later, who do I got calling me? David Hill.
Huh. You got offered. You got 2 offers in the matter of 2 days?
I got an offer of a job, and it was on a Raceworks chassis car.
Yeah.
And then I got a call to drive a car, which is a Raceworks chassis car. So now I'm thinking, this is going to be a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I can't tell Don no, because this is a great opportunity for me for a job to be able to do what I love to do and work on a race car. Like, who wouldn't want that? And he was fine with it. He understood. He thought it was a great opportunity. And I had told him, and I told the same thing to David. I said, when I'm setting up Don's car with him, I don't want to know nothing. I'm just tell me what shocks and springs you want in the car, and I'll help you, put your wedge and measurements and all that in the car. But I'm not talking back and forth any secrets or what Don's doing, we should be doing, or any of that.
So you were working on James Savali's car full time, and also driving the hill car.
Yep. When I
I didn't know that.
When I started driving the 79, yep, we went to.
So where was the first start in the 79?
My first race was at Thompson.
Okay.
I want to say it was a week or two after that, and Joe Pelham actually was a huge help of me getting into that car. He was working at Randy LaJoy's at the time, at the Joy Seating, and he was pushing me hard to get into David's car. And he's a huge Teddy supporter, and that was a big reason why I think I got into the 79. And still, I can't thank him enough for pushing me, because at that time, I had a lot of success with the SKs, but I had never I'd never been in a big modified or anything. So we went to Thompson. It was the same car that ran here, and I remember going out in that thing, and I'm thinking, okay, you better hang on. This is 600-700 horsepower, like Uncle Ben says, by the grace of God, and 600 horsepower. I'm like, man, this thing's got no power. Like, my SK goes better than this thing, right? So I tell David, I'm like, there's something drastically wrong. So they're looking everything over, checking the MSD boxes and everything, checking this and that. And, I had put my seat in that car, and they had the backup car, but that one had Chuck's seat in it. So he didn't want me to lose any time, so he was like, all right, we're going to put you in a backup car. So they unload the backup car, and I think they had to change the rear end, all 4 shocks and springs. I go in there, put my Hans on, and won't fit because Chuck's so short.
Yeah.
So my Hans is into his headrest, so they had to change the seat.
Jeez.
So I started dead last, which I think was 32 or 33 cars at the time because they had provisional, and I finished 11th. They get the car back to the shop. Well, when Chuck wrecked here the week before, it had ripped the header off, and he just replaced the header. Well, it broke 3 spark plugs on that side, too.
So you had nothing.
So, all that work that we did at the track, if they would have just put 3 spark plugs in it, I could have ran that primary car instead of having to go through all that. But same thing, it just showed that they were, dedicated into me.
They were committed to you.
Yeah, exactly. So that was cool.
You're a new guy on the team, so.
Right. And same thing. We had our ups and downs. We had some good races. I want to say I think that was the year that we lost John. And I had I was running up front when that happened. And realistically, if I was on the bottom instead of the top, could have came out of that winner. I think Zegedy won that race. Juhas was behind me, and kind of everybody checked up, and we got into it. And I can remember that. I can remember James we were all there. I could see Jimmy was like all getting out of the car, like he had his bell rung, and then I could see he got out of and ran over to look at John, and he knew it wasn't good, and he was yelling for Partridge. He was yelling for Eddie, and James had already been wrecked out of the race, and Bobby was wrecked out of the race, so they had come up to try to grab Jimmy, and it was just a bad moment. But
they had wrecked together earlier in the night in the SK, right? Jimmy and John, I believe. I think they were battling for the lead.
That I can't remember. It was a good battle. It was. They were grinding each other, but it was a back and forth crossover. It was going to be a good race to the end. But that was just one of the races where we were having a good showing, and then I can recall they were talking about resuming the race after that, and I remember Mike Stefanik saying, "No way." We walked across the track, and we all followed him off the track.
Yeah.
And then the next race was Mansfield, Ohio. And
there, I think you got 3rd, right?
Yep. Yeah, that was – you couldn't ask for a better top 3. I think James won the race in Don's car that I had prepared. Doug finished 2nd in the Kurt Chase 77, which I had helped. Actually, that's another story. I helped Doug on that car when he won the Spring Sizzler. I was the jack man. When he took a provisional and won the Spring Sizzler, I was jacking.
Woody Pitkat, the jack man on the Doug Covey 77. Look at that.
And I got a lot of stories with Doug too. Back, with American Sleeve Baron. Doug had worked for American Sleeve Baron. We were teammates when Doug was running the Pro Stock. I was running late model, and then we had Ricky Fuller was running the 8 Sheba car. We went to Martinsville all together. Or was it Richmond? I think we went and saw Doug at Richmond because he was at college at Richmond. But then we went and watched Ricky race at Martinsville. I remember being in Howard's Mustang with the convertible top down, going down the highway to go down there and see them. Going up to Staffordville Lake with the cars to do the car shows with the kids.
I want to jump back because you mentioned your connection with your crew chief Fuller there.
Mm-hmm.
That was the combo to end all combos in the SK. But how about the night where Mr. Jimmy Fuller took out an ice pick, and now we have you can only get the lucky dog a single time a race. Do you have any recollection of the Pitkat
You're
the
gonna
rule
have to.
now? You don't remember that one?
I know there's definitely a lot of
You get
rules.
a flat tire in the SK. I think it was the 150. You go like 3 laps down. You're not allowed to change the tires. So
Do you not remember me?
You get a flat, and they pulled down a sticker right rear. He comes back from 3 laps down, gets the lucky dog 3 times. It's the Woody Pitkat rule. You'll only get the lucky dog once.
It was only 2 laps.
Oh, sorry. So you can
And
only
then-
get the lucky dog once now.
And
though.
then after I won the race, that's what everybody was saying. Well, you were really 3 laps down.
Oh, is that what it is?
But was that the race where there was one? It was either the 100 lapper or I don't know about the ice pick, but I know one of those races we went spinning through the infield, and it was right after the monster trucks. So you know how you had all the stuff, the dirt and stuff.
Yeah.
Because we had the tire, it had one of those flags, those little wire.
Oh, the flag
flags.
hit it.
Yeah, so the flag went through the tire.
It's always been to me. There was a nice pick involved, but I'm just saying.
I don't know.
I'm just saying.
Should we call
It's
Jimmy?
years
Let's
later.
call Jimmy and ask him. Let's get him on
He'll
the
never
show.
tell us.
We'll speaker him right now.
But on that note, so
But
what
that
was
100 lapper,
yeah.
I remember the 100 lapper. I got that flat. Same thing. I got a flat.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're right.
It was the 150, and you just blasted up back through.
The
The
100
car was so fast.
The 100 lapper was before the 150.
Yeah.
Because the 100 lapper was, we got a caution. I want to say Keith might have blown up. He was driving for Poulin, the 78. I think he blew a motor. We get a caution with 17 to go, and Fuller wants me to come in for a 3.
This is what it
And
is.
I'm like, no way. I'm like, there's not enough time. He's like, you'll be fine. I'm like, I'm snapping. He goes, get the car down here now. We're putting 3 on. So we put 3 on it. And we come through, like you said.
Yeah.
The thing was on. I mean, I was back to 3rd with 9 laps to go.
Yeah.
And the guy, there's a YouTube video. It's Woody Pitkat versus Ted Christopher.
It's hard to do in an SK race. Too.
And there was so many restarts, and I did the same move, like off, followed him in, got underneath him off of 2, caution would come out. Same move each time, like 3 or 4 times. And then if you watch, there's one time where he almost hooked me getting into 3, and you could see the whole car, and you listen to the video, the guy's like, wow, and made the save. And then when I get on the lead, I'm gone. And then I can remember Teddy. He's saying over to PA, I'm going to have to talk to Mark. I asked him if this was going to be a tire rule or not because usually, nobody talked about it. So that's why, Jimmy, that's how he was. When we went to the tire allotment and figuring out the tires, he always had it figured out where he would bank the tires. So at the end of the year, we could run the last 5 or 6 races with stickers. Mm-hmm. Like he was a wizard. He definitely was. He figured that out.
That was a dominant. That car was dominant with the flames on it, and that was a cool looking car. And what was the connection? Was it just a good connection between you and him?
I think a lot of it was that. Yeah, I mean, at the time, it was same thing. It was pretty much right after I had a couple years after I had that talk with Bob Phil about feedback.
Yeah.
So, and working with him, that's all it was, and I didn't really get a whole tale of what he was doing. Like he wouldn't say, okay, I would tell him what the car's doing and he's going to do this and why. Like, okay, I'm going to put spring rubber in the right front because this is what you're telling me. It wasn't a lot of that. It was just I would tell him and you could see him. You could just look at him
thinking.
And he would just, he's just walking around or he'd be in the trailer. That's how he was. He was quiet and he would just do his magic. And, I mean, we had a little different stuff that we had tried that year, with the sway bar and stuff that seemed to work. And that was another thing. He was just so, I mean, we were in the shop every night. When we were racing, that was back when there were 17 races at Thompson on Thursdays and then 20 races or 22 races here. So we would be racing Bobby's car, the 99 on Thursdays, here on Fridays. I'd race a Thursday night, come back to Bob's shop, unload the car, unload the trailer. Erica would follow me to the shop, or my buddy Mike Royce when he started helping me. Unload the car, load up the other car, load up the tire cart with the tires for Stafford, drive the truck and trailer here because I had to work the next day, and then I'd leave it in front of the pit
it
gate
was
or
always
driving
parked out
in.
here,
And
on
then
Friday morning.
Erica would give me a ride home or whatever, and then I'd go to work and take a half day of work, come back down here. So, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you were in the shop. And if you had a bad weekend, it was Saturday or Sunday or even Friday night. But he was so about everything. Just like the big thing was aerodynamic stuff, doing stuff with the nose, doing this, doing the plastic. You could see the plastic on the side. That was one thing he always said, air's free, use it. And I thought
underrated stuff.
I thought
the
some
aero
of
is a big deal in those SKs.
Especially now. You see it more and more each year.
They suck up on each other. Yeah.
So I thought he was crazy. I can remember the first time Kerry Malone says, "Oh yeah, there's a draft at Thompson." I'm like, "What's this guy nuts? He thinks we had Daytona, or Talladega," but he was right.
Yeah.
And each year, like you see it more and more. It's pretty crazy. I don't even remember where we're going with this. But
The connection, but I think
he was. It was just those years.
Good combo.
Was just giving them really good feedback, and as you were saying with the 2-lap rule. Well, after that 100-lap race that we won, there was no more changing tires after the 100-lapper. So that was the first Woody rule.
There's a lot of Woody rules.
Yeah, there's a Woody rule. No more tires 100-lapper. So then we do the 150, like you say.
There may or may not be an ice pick involved.
I don't know about the ice pick. Who stocks an ice pick in the toolbox?
Jimmy Fuller wouldn't have an ice pick in his toolbox. Come on.
Maybe was he making a drink in the middle in the infield? So, like you said, we go, get a flat, go 2 laps down, and he's just right around the back. Don't even push the throttle. Wait till you get back on the lead lap. Okay, get back on the lead lap. See ya.
Checked out.
Next year, 150 lapper. There's no more lucky dogs.
You get one lucky dog.
Oh, there was one?
It's still the rule.
You get one race.
One
I
lucky
thought
dog
there
a
was.
race.
I thought there was none.
One.
So that was another. I wonder if maybe these are Jimmy Fuller rules.
Probably.
Yeah, they're probably not.
There's
Woody
probably a lot
Pitkat
of
rules.
other Jimmy Fuller rules out there in the rule book too.
So but that was just the chemistry. You got to when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together. We had, you had a great crew chief. We had a great team. We
Good
had
sponsor.
we had Davison Company. We had Bobby Hitchcock. And then you look at it like even now. I was talking a little bit about it a couple days ago. You look at the 88 that I drove on the tour. They're having a really good success now in the dirt, and their driver Matt Williamson, he's kind of like me. He's in 3 or 4 different cars, has 3 or 4 different teams, and this past year they all worked together as one when they went to that big race at Oswego, and at the end of the year they just gelled and they worked well together. And I talked to Spot, their crew chief, right before Christmas, and he said, there's nobody in here with a big head. Nobody's saying like, okay, well, I can see how you're doing it on the car, but we do it a different way. There was nothing like that, no bickering. They all worked together as a team, and I think that's why they had so much success towards the end of the year there, where they won those couple races and won the championship. So when you can get all the pieces of the puzzle together like that, a perfect example is looking at Doug, the last 6 years, no matter what happened.
That a lot. He was, in that podcast, it was all about the people in place to build that team. Without the team, it's pretty much every guest that has come on. It's all about the right car owner, sponsor, crew chief, driver. It's the whole package.
Right.
And then when it meshes, you're off.
Right.
30 wins here in the SK Modified, including the 100-lapper in 07, the 150 that we've talked about. Of those 30, what stands out the most? Is there one that is just
Top of the board?
Top of the board?
I mean, a lot of those races, I want to say a couple of those were inaugural. I mean, 50-lapper, late model race was a 50-lapper on my 21st birthday. That was my first win, which started it. The late model 100 lapper I had won. I want to say the late model 150 was the first inaugural 150. And that was, I can remember having Herb Bennett spot for me, and Bob Phil's yelling on the radio, and Herb saying, "Leave him alone. He's got it, he's got it under control. Let him do his thing." And he'd come back on the radio. "I just telling you one more thing. Okay, you got it. Bye." And I remember him telling me, Chuck Sintarski was battling with me on the outside, and just keep him out there. Keep him out there. Don't let him clear you. But don't pass him. Just hang him out there. Let him wear his stuff out. So that was a big win. Then we had like an invitational race one year.
Yeah,
It was
the
with the-
October Invitational. It was after the fall final.
Yep, I remember having like a
You
weird
won the late model portion of that, right? Yeah.
I had like a weird note because we had body panels. That was the year where it was either wreckers or checkers for me. I think I won 5 races at Thompson and had 8 DNFs. So I had like part of a black nose, part of a neon yellow nose for that invitational race. But that was a cool race to win. But I'd have to say the biggest race would be the Spring Sizzler.
Yeah,
in
that's
88.
what I was gonna.
There's no
jump
doubt
to next.
after seeing all the people that have accomplished the wins and the prestige and just, coming here throughout the years. I mean, obviously,
you're
our
in the history books
yeah,
of the Sizzler, man. It's
right.
unbelievable.
Our family's pretty close. My mother talks to your mother from time to time. So it's just a really cool story growing up. Tommy Butler, I don't know if I'd say I was a huge fan of him when I was growing up, but when I started racing with him and talking to him and getting some advice from him, he was a big supporter. And still to this day, he goes to watch me race, and he was texting me after that how proud he was of me and how happy he was of me. It's just that was a really cool race to win.
Yeah. You forgot the milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
know. I was.
we got
I
a
was
couple
days later.
Oh yeah, I
That
was
way you
ripped.
just have to win this year's Sizzler, and then we'll make sure you got all the milk you need out there.
All right.
I was gonna so prior to that Sizzler victory, you did notch a win in the August event, and I thought that was one of the coolest nights because I think you spent half an hour in Victory Lane. You must have thanked every single supporter of your whole career.
Yep.
And that it must have been a huge moment for you and all your fans and your family, and it was cool.
Yeah, it finally showed because, I mean, I knew getting into that 88, just you're going to have the best of the best. This is my best opportunity that I'm going to have to showcase it. And, came out of Thompson, finished second, and that was kind of on me. We were dominating it, and then we pitted, and I was screaming loose, and well, after 98 laps, you're going to be pretty loose, but now you only got to go 40, and I had him over-tighten the car, which if he would have just put tires on it instead of over-tightening the car, this is all stuff that
he
you
remembers
learn.
every single section of that.
I remember a lot of things. You definitely remember things when you lose, so. So, yeah, that was, I was wondering. The pressure was building, It was wondering what was going to happen. We went to Loudon. We had a good car, overheated it and blew up, and Bobby won. And I said, I'm going to Victory Lane. I'm going,
You just knew it.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go to Victory Lane to see what it was all about at Loudon. So I ran into Victory Lane and congratulated Bobby.
You went to Victory Lane.
Yeah. No, I was so mad that had a really good car there and thought I was going to have an opportunity to win. But that was, when I was dating Erica and I knew they were going to be there. So I said, I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah.
And I was just a winning at Loudon is.
Special.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, it's pretty
Would you
big.
say that's
in
a
Bristol.
bigger victory than the Sizzler?
No, I mean it's big because it's in front of the Cup and it's in front of that. But to me, my biggest win I would say is winning the Sizzler. Yeah, it was cool to win. I won Loudon in September, and that was a huge win. We dominated that race, pretty much led the whole thing.
Yeah,
and made the right moves at the end. To beat Zegedy, and it was a really cool story, like I said, because Bobby won the July race and I won the September race, so that was a pretty cool year.
2020 got a new team, and I think we have a special guest that's about to come on in over here. He can say hello. We got a car owner, Doug Dunleavy in the house, just popping in to say hi. Mr. Dunleavy. We'll get you on the mic in a bit, but we'll wrap up with your driver here, and then we'll plug you in. How's that sound? So
this guy came out of nowhere.
He always does.
I was
right?
gonna say, isn't that the norm?
I was gonna how did this become a new team? You got Doug. You got it's the one car you drove for a couple events at the end of 2019, and it's going to be a full-time campaign in 2020. Kind of talk to me about that team and the expectations.
Yeah, it all came about like when I had started running with the Hills and going down south. Eddie is just a very generous, outgoing guy. He loves to talk to people. and he had just come by and said hi to me. He knew of me. He had heard that I was, he's a late model guy. He's a full fender guy. So he kind of watched me, when I drove for the hills. But that was one of the things that he remembered the most was, he's a fender guy. So I just had started talking to him when I drove for the hills, and then I didn't drive for the hills. I drove for them for a year and then drove, for Don for a while, and then got an opportunity to get back in the ride for the hills. And we had some success at New Smyrna and won the championship and some races down there. And then, ran a year with them, and they kind of financially, ran out of money and stuff and finished the year off, and then got the opportunity with the 88. But as all that was going on, me and Eddie had a friendship and a relationship, and we were talking, and we always were talking about wanting to do something, but either I had a ride or he had a driver. So as of this year, watching him each race, not having a driver, having somebody for 4 races, somebody, and me kind of just, struggling with Danny and stuff. We just had talked a little bit about maybe doing something towards the end of the year, and then, just kept trying to do the best I could with Danny and try to finish the year out with him on a high note, and then go in a different direction for 2020. And, Danny Watt, the guy I was driving for at the time, gave me the call to say he wanted to try something different the last couple races. And, I told him I couldn't agree anymore, because I thought I would have an opportunity to run some races with Eddie and see if we could work together and gel and everything, because I didn't want to waste anybody's time. If I did end up running for Danny the rest of the year and then started 2020 with Eddie and something didn't work out 3 races in, now what do you do? You don't want to be at each other's throats for the whole year.
Gives
so
you a chance to kind of
so I thought it was, probably, like Eddie says, things happen for a reason, and it was probably a good opportunity for Danny to see what he wanted to do, and it was a good opportunity for me to try something. And I thought we hit off great. We had a great run at Loudon. We didn't qualify as good as I would have liked to, but I think he was a little hesitant with making changes on the car, not getting too crazy. And then we had some stuff that happened throughout the race, but at the end of the day, we went a couple laps down, got our laps back, and had a respectable 12th place finish. I was actually, the day that we had, I was shocked that we finished that well, and then we came here and we qualified. Same thing. We didn't qualify as good as I had hoped.
You've never been a good qualifier, have you?
Yeah,
That's when everybody beats you up. Everybody beats you up.
I qualified good.
Everybody beats you up on time trials.
I think it's more of a mind thing than anything, because once I got in the 88, but that was, if you look at the 88 too, that was at a time where there was only 2 or 3 spec motors.
Yeah.
And
that was a weird time on a tour.
We had an advantage over the built motors. There was no thing around, ifs about it. So I think that was probably had a lot to do with it too. But so go back to that Stafford race. I was happy because we were like 4th or 5th on the board in practice, and missed it a little bit for time. Same thing. You don't try to. There's things that you can do in time trials, but if you go outside the box and go too far, it can hurt you in the race.
Yeah.
20, 30 laps in the race, you can be screaming loose. So you kind of got to think of the big picture. So that's what we did, and we were running awesome. We were up in the top 5. I was racing with Bobby, and we pitted, and that was the one tire deal. So
I love that one tire.
Oh yeah,
deal.
it's great. Yeah.
That's my brainchild.
It's great if they give you the opportunity to come in for all 3. So we had come in and we did 2, and they were screaming that they're giving us the one to go.
Yeah. No, that was a mistake.
So I stayed out on the track.
And you got eaten alive.
Heavens forbid, here comes the Doug Cobies and the Justin Bonds and yours and all the top 3 in points.
I think they put the caution out, right?
Of course.
Yeah,
you got to.
That was a mistake.
You got to throw the caution.
That was a mistake.
All the big guys are coming in. Well, that's what we thought. I said, they're going down pit row. We're mint. Yeah, we're mint. They're going to be coming out on a tail end.
It was like you and maybe the 3 car were up
in
there.
Pastriat. Yeah. We were all on 2 tires, and I was like, this we're going to be good. So then they all had the opportunity to get 3. And we went back to green for 3 or 4 laps, and Doug was on 3, and he was all over the back of me, and I was – Eddie still says I was having a Spice Girl moment, screaming like a Spice Girl on there.
Because you were loose?
No, because I told him when the caution come out, I told him the only way we're going to win this race is if I come in and get that right front. And Eddie's like, you don't need it. You're going to be fine. Your car's been –
And then his Spice Girl moment.
Yeah. No, I was just – I kept telling him that I had to come in for that right front tire. So he said, you know what? Now, it's in your mind now. Yeah. Nothing's going to change your mind. If I tell you to stay out no matter what, you think you need that right front tire. So come in and get it. So we came in and we got it, and we had to come from 20th. I got back to 7th or 8th, just ran out of time. But if I stayed out there, I would have been easily top 5 finish. And that's what he said. I said, man, I watched it on TV the next week, and I texted him right after the race. We should have stayed out. Yeah. And he calls me, if you weren't screaming like a Spice Girl on the radio, we would have left you out. But that's just, that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to – nobody's in it to make a bunch of money. Right. You see a lot of these teams where they make it like – it's almost like they put a lot of pressure on you. Yes, it's a job. People really need to realize, especially on a modified tour, when you get into it, it's like another job. You got to take it serious. But Eddie, he's both. He's serious, but he wants to have fun and wants to make it fun too. Because if you ain't at the racetrack and you ain't having fun and you ain't running good, what's the point of being there?
Yeah.
So that was the big thing with him, like at Loudon and Stafford, and then Thompson was our best run. We started 9th and we ran up front all day and. It's a whole different deal, I tell you, on the tour. When you run up front compared to running in the back, it's almost like it's two different races.
And it's also got to be a confidence deal, too.
Absolutely.
When you're driving around for 15th place, A, it probably isn't very fun, and then B, your confidence is in the gutter.
Right. But you're watching the whole race
in front of you.
Yeah. What's happening, and no matter what you do, you can't get any better. But when you finish top 5, like you said, and you're pumped and you're in tech,
in the mix.
You're in tech and you're all excited, and it's like, you know what? Well, I didn't see Donnie Leah this race. Where did he finish? Or I didn't see this guy in this race. Where did he finish? Because it's almost like two different races. That's the big thing with the 88. When you started running up front, it was like, oh wow, holy cow!
Yeah, I'm up front. So 2020 goals are the championship or just like getting back to victory lane. What are the goals for the team this year?
Yeah, I think everybody's goal getting into it is at the end of the day is you want to win the championship. And I think if you go out there with the mindset of, winning as many races as you can, the points will follow. His motto is let's go out there. I think it's a little bit big, but let's go out there and win practice, put the car on the pole, lead every lap, and win the race. And that's great. And it's not he's not looking at a cocky. He's looking at us confident, which is great, and obviously it'd be hard to do that, but there's been drivers that have done it. So we're definitely all in, to go for the championship. We have the backing and we have the team that can do it, and he's had the success down south. He's won 2 championships with 2 different drivers, so it shows that he can do it. And we have, obviously a great supporter, Doug Dunleavy. I got Steve Greer, Gunsmoke Stables, a whole nother guy that we never even talked about.
Yeah, we get to him. We'll have to come back another time.
I would have
a whole portion of this story.
I would have never even. I told you, I need a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
3-part series.
Yeah, 1 hour doesn't work for me. But Steve Greer was my reason why I won an SK championship.
SK championship.
I never
we didn't even
could
touch
get
on
the
the SK
job,
championship either.
I could never get the job done until. So that right there, there's no reason why I drove for him first year and won the championship. Yeah. There's no reason why I can't do that with Eddie and Doug and everybody we have over there. So that's our goal, and there's not really any reason. My big thing is I want to go out there, try to time. We're going back to time trials, no more group qualifying. So I'm going to try to be obviously on my game a little bit more with that. And if you can finish top 5, I think top 5 is like a win. If you're every week you're going to the track and you're in tech, that means a lot.
That's good
on the tour, and the points will follow that. A perfect example was last year when I started with Danny. We had only first 3 or 4 races. We were 14th, 13th, 14th. We were consistent, but we were in that 10th to 15th, and we were like 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th points. And then I won that race at Wall, and I jumped all the way up to 4th.
You survived a demo derby.
Yeah, Doug's got a good story for you on that. I'll let him talk to you about that story.
And so besides the tour plans, any plans to compete in the SK at Stafford this year? I know you hooked up with the 10 team. What's that looking like?
Yeah, I got together with Dan the last couple years. We had ventured off to Thompson because Fridays are hard for me with the family. My wife works on Fridays, so I'm usually get the kids out of daycare in the afternoon. So if I'm here on a Friday and she's got to get them out of work, she's usually last one out. Daycare closes at 6:30. If she can't get over there, it's $1 a minute, I think, that they're in there. Plus the fact that they're in there, they'd be in there 12 hours.
Yeah,
that's a lot
day.
for toddlers to be in. So it's just the Fridays were hard. So I had talked to Dan, and he wanted to do something. I came down here the year before and finished second. I think it was when he was suspended. That's
Dan Avery got parked for a week.
Yeah, well, that's how that story started. Yeah. It got parked, and I asked Glenn, I said, do you think I got a chance of getting in that car? I'd love to get down there and run. And I came down here and ran, and I think that's when you guys... Yeah, you guys were putting the stuff on the track at that time.
Top was rolling.
And Glenn was like, you got to run the top here like loud. And I'm like, what? You crazy. So I went up and I watched the SK Light race.
And it was, the
and
top was hooked up.
Marcello Ruffano and Brian Narducci were like in the HOV lane way up there. I'm like, oh, my God. And I was so glad I watched that race. I started 16th, and I passed everybody on the outside but one car. I think I passed Chase Dallin for third on the bottom. And that's how it all started with Dan. And then, I told him that the Thompson schedule was easier, so we ran Thompson. But then with their whole package, that financial package that they came out with this year, you can't support it. Dan didn't want to support it, and realistically you can't, because if you get 25 or 26 cars going up there to race for $400, $500 to win, all the hard work that you guys do and your family does, you're going to be like, why are we doing this? Why are we why are you going out and getting all these sponsors and giving us $2,000 to win when everybody's going there to race for $500? That's so. I just didn't think that was right. So I had asked Dan if I could run a couple races down here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to probably.
How many shows do you think?
Probably 5 or 6.
The Sultan of Stafford is back.
We're going to do the 3 tour races.
Build on that win list.
Absolutely.
Build on that win list. Got to stay ahead of Tom Fern. Tom Fern is encroaching on that 70th.
4 behind you.
So got to get him in a late model too. Then
he'll have 4 before May.
No. Rapid fire to cap this off. You think?
Yeah. Let's go with some rapid fire
So
questions.
this is just you answer your first thought.
White or black?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to take a Kyle today?
77 wins here at Stafford. Your biggest win?
I'd still have to say the Spring Sizzler.
Okay.
Yep, with a 88.
Biggest rival?
Oh. Actually, that's a hard one. I'd have to say, even though Jeff Malave was my teammate back in the day when I ran for the Davison Company, he was the hardest guy to pass for some reason.
Wasn't Charles Lewandowski back in...
Or Jay Stewart, I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, Jay Stewart. I mean, Teddy, everybody has the Teddy story, but Teddy was always good to me. Like he always ran me hard and clean.
He never have any issues.
No, he was awesome to race with.
Favorite track?
I like Concord Motorsports Park.
Doug Colby said the same thing. That place is badass.
That dogleg, when you can just be full throttle off of that, if you want to call it turn 1, turn 2, and just be wide open through the dogleg.
You haul around that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Stafford's a close second, but that place is...
Doug Colby said the same thing. That's funny.
Least favorite track?
Probably Riverhead. Yeah, I mean, Seekonk ain't my favorite, but I've had some success there. I would say Riverhead. But I've had good runs there, which is weird. But I don't know. That place, you got to go in there and say that you're going to have a good run. If you look at the schedule and say, oh, Riverhead's this weekend, you're already done. So,
final one, your favorite Cup driver?
Now?
Either.
I mean, I've jumped around throughout the years, obviously, growing up, but right now it's Joey Logano.
Logano?
Yeah. He's the man.
That's what the Barstool guys call him. The Barstool guys, Joey Logano blocked the Barstool guys on Twitter.
Really?
Because they call him Slogano. I love it.
I didn't hear that story.
That's so funny.
That is pretty funny.
But yeah, that was
sorry,
that's it, right?
My rapids are way too long. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
Let's see if you beat Doug Colby. I don't think you did. He could have talked for a whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stories. We didn't even talk about poor Steve.
We'll have to come. We'll have to.
And then the story.
We'll have to have you back.
The story one. I almost won my first tour race. Was the fall final when I drove for the 79. I led the whole race. 9 laps to go. I got passed. I lost power steering.
Sun broke. Yeah, power steering.
Yeah. And I can remember being so disappointed. And the first thing my wife tells me, which she wasn't my wife at the time, was, "You took a lap off. If you didn't take that one lap off, you would have won the race." I'm like, look at my windshield. Look at power steering. Fluid all over it. And she's still to this day, "You took a lap off."
We'll have you back.
Yeah, that was
great.
great.
Do a part 2. Talk more about those days and Erica and, a lot of stories there as well.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming out. You're an important part of the history of Stafford, and we're excited to have you back in SK this year. It's going to be a fun year.
Thank you very much. I'm
Appreciate
looking forward to it.
Awesome.
I can't wait.
Back here on the Bottom Shot Podcast, and you just never know who's going to drop
Look,
by.
we got a special guest here.
Longtime Modified supporter, team owner,
Mr. Modified, I'd call
track sponsors, I feel like half the field. Doug Dunleavy joins us. Doug, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you very much.
We're glad you stopped by. This is great. We're about to announce you're coming back for another season at the track as a big sponsor of the SK Light Special. Kind of talk to us about what you're doing here in 2020.
Well, I'm trying to fire up Stafford some.
Oh, boy.
That's why I'm up here right now, negotiating the Dunleavy's night, and we're wheeling and dealing and making some new ideas for different shows throughout the year.
What I love about Doug is anytime I talk to Doug about anything at Stafford, he's always like, let's come up with the craziest idea. And that's kind of how the Gamblers Challenge came together over the seasons. And Doug has been a longtime supporter of that. Big SK fan. It's Stafford. Who do you think is got the best? Who do you like in 2020 in the SK division?
Oh, there's a lot of choices right now, but the focus is really on Keith Rocco. Being bumped around in 19 and a little bit of 18 there.
Yeah.
The focus is coming back, and I really need to step up and help him a little bit more throughout the year also. And it's a lot of fun. I like it, and it gives me the drive for the weekends that I don't have the tour races.
Paul mentioned the Gamblers Challenge a moment ago. For those that don't know or may not know what that is, kind of explain to us that concept that debuted here at the track a couple seasons back.
All right. I came up with this Gamblers Challenge for the SKs, and I said, let's try it. And Stafford said, let's do it.
I said, hell yeah.
I said, I'll match whatever the drivers put up. So we negotiated, and I think it was $100.
$100 for the driver, yeah.
At that 5K race.
Yep.
Let's try it, see how it goes. And everybody entered. So
it was cool.
26 cars. All of a sudden, I'm $2,500, which I figured maybe 10 would enter realistically.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back in time, Teddy Christopher won it. He didn't even know what he put the $100 in.
Yeah, because I think that was the first. Did he get the first? Oh, it might have been
one.
Priest got the first one.
Yeah.
And Priest
Got
he
it
walked
all.
out of here with like $13,000.
Yeah, with some watch or
he won
I
everything.
mean, people were given a whole bunch of other stuff, and if you can, there's that night is open for other things. If you own a business and want to bring in gifts like drills and stuff like that.
We get accept. We'll
Yeah, I mean, there was like somebody gave a,
it was like a watch and there was a bunch of gift certificates.
Yeah, gift certificates. So it added up to what it was that night.
It was like
13.5
or something.
Yeah.
And it's not just the winner that's eligible. Everybody that's entered in the
Right,
race
and then
has
you
a
got to
shot.
pick out of that.
That's what's cool about it because you do the drawing at the end of the night. We got Doug is down there and the
Kyle's looking for me.
The winner,
Where is he?
the winner draws. So I think this past SK 5K it went to 10th to 20th.
Yep.
So I think the guy who ended up in 20th got like $800 or something. So it's a pretty good little payday out the back.
We are moving that to Dunleavy's night
for the
that,
SKs.
yes.
Oh, cool. So that's
now it is that.
You heard it here first, July 24th.
Or July 24th.
That's Doug's event.
So that'll be now a 5,000 plus to win race. So it carries these guys not just through June, but now
Gets us
through
the end of July
and August.
Yep.
And that's the off a weekend for the Cup too. So you never know who shows up.
Yeah, I'm really surprised I'm not friends with Kevin Harvick with all the stuff that's going
when
on
we get
with
Kevin
him.
to call in, which I think he's going to call in eventually on the show here, we're going to have to put you in touch with him, and we'll see if we can make some magic
I
happen.
love that bounty I heard on that truck race deal with Kyle.
He loves the mods too. He ever since he's been involved, he keeps tabs on everything that's going on at Stafford, and Who knows? July
You never know.
24th? Could be anybody here.
Yeah, I was very disappointed throughout the winter with the 2 team. Okay.
Yeah.
I put a bid on the team. They didn't really come back and negotiate, but I gave them an offer and said, let's go racing for 4 years. I can do it for 4 years,
Yeah.
and then I'm retired. And I've said I've retired quite a few years now, and I'm getting worse. But, I'm glad that Kobe is doing what he's doing. It's a sign of relief because I was involved in that team. But also now I'm an owner with Eddie Harvey with the 1 team.
Yeah.
And we got Woody Pitkat, and we're going for it.
You're going for it
We're
this
no
year.
joke, okay? It's all out. And it feels like the energy from the 2 team carried on.
Cool.
So competition is on,
So
baby.
keep an eye on the 1 team here this year.
Yeah.
He's coming.
And the way
Sizzler
we
for
got
for
Woody,
everything.
and Woody was saying it in his talk show, is talk to Doug about it. When we were at Wall, he came over and he was very disappointed, and the 82 team was struggling. And I said, listen, Woody, put your big boy shoes on, go out there, keep every wheel on that car. I don't care if the bumpers are on or off. You're going to win the race at Wall.
And
he
he did.
looked at me, he says, you're out of mind. I said, I'll bet you right now if you win, you're in the car later in the year.
Wow.
And I said, the way that you guys are with the 82, it's going to dissolve. So here's your chance. And he liked Eddie. And, Eddie would always call him anyhow. I mean, them 2 at least talk. They're like girlfriends for crying out loud.
They're Spice Girls, huh?
Oh, yes. So, it happened. And, I was so happy for him for that win. I mean, really.
So it was a bet that got it
team,
done.
That team needed it.
Yeah.
They got bounced around. And, the accident that happened with Sapienza,
Yeah.
it scared a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought that guy behind that barrier got hit
hurt,
and
yeah.
everything else. But it's a blessing, I knock on wood. I had a big meeting getting involved with the NASCAR Whelen Modifieds with Robert Yates and his wife. Early on, they took me out to lunch, and his wife put his hand on me and said, we love what you're doing in this sport, with all these drivers, but be careful how close you get to them because of fatality. And it hit my heart. But reality-wise, every time they strap in, I say like it's a blessing. I talk to them just like it could happen. It's a dangerous sport, but we all love it.
And we appreciate every lap. We
Yep.
really do.
We really do.
Well, Doug, we appreciate you coming
right.
out, stopping in. We're definitely going to have Doug on for a full episode, I
Absolutely.
think, because we got a
Yeah.
lot of
A
stories
lot to
yeah.
talk about.
I love
Yep.
all the crazy ideas that
And
we've
we're
come
going to
up
have
with.
a great year at Stafford.
Yeah.
So hang on and don't forget about them Whelen Modifieds.
StaffordSpeedway.com for all the upcoming news regarding all the action this summer involving Doug. Thanks for
Thanks,
joining
Doug.
us.
Wrapping up another edition of the Bottom Shot podcast here at the Stafford Motor Speedway, and that right there is why he is one of the great personalities of this era here at the Stafford Motor Speedway. Always a lot to say, and obviously he has accomplished a lot here at the racetrack with 77 wins over all those different divisions.
It's crazy how that's 77 is a ton of wins, and he's the Sultan of Stafford. That's why he has that name. He grew up at Stafford. He raced all over. He's on the tour now, and I think he's excited for 2020. He has a new team. He's looking. He's pumped up. I think he's got some good support behind him, and he was awesome on the podcast. And I hope he has a great 2020 and kind of does Stafford proud on the tour.
Absolutely, and I believe he will do just that. Let's talk about 2020. Right around the corner, the Napa Spring Sizzler. Just a couple of weeks away. Hard to believe. April 24th, 25th, and 26th.
Yeah, April 24th, 25th, 26th. The tickets are now on sale online or over the phone. Give us a call or go online, StaffordSpeedway.com/tickets, or just go to the homepage and hit the buy tickets option in the upper right corner. Yep. The reserved seats are going fast already. You know, it's already the beginning of March, and we're selling a bunch of reserved tickets. There's a lot of excitement about the Modified Tour and about Stafford, and get those tickets today.
Saturday will feature the street stocks, the limited late models, and the vintage outlaws once again, plus qualifying for all of the NASCAR Whelen All-American Series
time
divisions.
Trials are back.
That's right.
For the Modified Tour.
No more group qualifying like
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if the fans prefer the group qualifying, but I prefer the time trials, to be honest. If I could have it my way, heat races.
I love it.
But NASCAR says no. But I digress.
And you don't want to be the first driver to take time, usually, right? Depends.
That's what Doug said. That's what
Yeah.
Kobe said. So,
on our last show.
But time trials on Saturday now.
Time trials on Saturday, and Sunday will feature the SK Modifieds, the late models, the SK Lights, and, of course, the Napa Spring Sizzler 200-lap event for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. And I believe we kick it off again with the fan appreciation
pit party
down on the front stretch.
Always a blast. You go down, you get some candy, get some autographs, check out the car. Great time for all the kids to come out, meet the drivers. Everyone's in their suits and got autographs and goodies. It's probably the pit party at the Sizzler is kind of the place where everyone has jitters. You know, It's like before the race. You have a new season. Everyone's excited. You don't know. It's kind of before the madness occurs. It's a weird vibe, but it's a blast, and it's a can't miss event at Stafford.
It's a great opportunity for the new fans to go down on the racetrack, see the cars up close, and maybe find a driver or two or three to root for throughout the entire summer.
Yeah, because there's drivers are just they're just normal guys and gals, and you can go up and talk to them and get to know them, and who knows, you might find a new driver that you used to hate and now you love.
That's right. That's right. Great opportunity to have conversations with all the drivers here at Stafford. So get here early that Spring Sizzler Sunday morning for the pit party. I think that's going to wrap it up for another edition
of the
Bottom Shop Podcast.
That was fun.
We'll be back to do it again here soon. Check out all the Stafford Motor Speedway social media channels here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Make sure you subscribe to our channel.
So then you're the first to know when a new episode drops. Trying to get the lingo down.
You nailed it.
Here we go.
You're so cool.
I don't know about that. We'll see you next time here from the Stafford Motor Speedway on the Bottom Shop Podcast.